In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the front brake caliper on this Nissan Frontier. This will be located behind your front wheel. Let's get started. With the vehicle safely raised and supported, use a 21mm socket, remove all 6 lug nuts, and then pull the wheel off. And now remove your wheel. Using a 14mm socket or wrench, remove these 2 bolts that hold the caliper onto the bracket. Take the caliper off, we'll flip it around and inspect it. What you don't want to see is brake fluid right around here. Mine's good. Now you want to use a hook or a bungee cord, hang it from right here, somewhere where it won't pull on the brake hose. It's time to remove our pads. Usually these little springs are here on each end of the pads and they just help to push them apart off of the rotor. We'll install new ones when the time comes. With the old ones removed, you should be able to pull your pads out. It looks like mine are fairly stuck, so I will need a pry bar to punch them out of here. There's one. And the second. Now use a 19mm socket to remove these 2 bolts that hold the caliper bracket onto the knuckle. Leave this one in a few threads so it can hold it while you remove the lower. Pull them both out, take the bracket and set it aside. Now with the new caliper on our workbench, let's take this apart, as in separate the caliper from the bracket. Use a 14mm socket and take these 2 bolts off. We'll set the caliper aside and we'll be working on the bracket to lubricate it and get it ready for installation. Right in these grooves, we'll have to put some silicone paste that is rated for brakes, or you could use brake grease if that's what you have. And you only want a thin layer. If you put too much, it'll squeeze out when you put the clips on, and that's going to get on your rotor. That would not be good. Once that's lubricated, take your new clips, slide them on, make sure it's all centered up, and push them in until they lock nice and flush. We'll flip it over and do the same to this side. Next, we have to remove the slider pins, lubricate them. Even though they might have some grease on them, this is just for shipping. This is not enough for proper operation. What I like to do is take some of my silicone paste, stick it inside the boot, and then work it around in there. You don't want to put too much, but just enough to create a small reserve of grease in there. And then the rest I'll put directly on my pin. This is a little bit too much, so I'll wipe some off. If you put too much on the pin, it's actually just going to get pushed right out as you try to put it in, so it's just going to go to waste. At this point, I'm going to stick this in, push it all the way in. You'll see that some air is trapped in here, causing this to push back out. In that case, push the pin in, squeeze the boot, and that's going to release any of the excess air that's in there. I have some grease that came out here, so I'm going to just wipe it clean. You also want to make sure that grease made its way right in this ridge over here. So if you pull the boot off, you should see some in there. I do. That's great. That helps it seal up. So now we'll move to the other slider pin and do the same thing. All right, this bracket is now ready to be installed on the vehicle. So grab the bracket, line it up with the knuckle, have your 2 bolts ready to line up, have your 2 bolts ready to start in. Once you get these started by hand, bottom them out. Torque these 2 bolts to 136 foot-pounds. Let's install the pads. In my case, neither of them have a wear indicator. If yours do, they would go on the inner side, the one with the wear indicator, that is. Start them in at an angle and push them on. Do the same to the other one. This outer one will never have a wear indicator. In my application, I have these little springs that hold the pads apart, just so that when you're not applying the brakes, they don't drag on the rotor. You have to insert them in these little cutouts on the pads. Now keep in mind, these will push them apart, so if there's no caliper here, they can fall out. So just hold them as you insert these. Make sure these are pushed in all the way. And now, while holding them, put the caliper over to secure everything. Now secure the caliper with the 2 little bolts that hold it onto the slider pins. Get these bottomed out, and then we'll torque them to 32 foot-pounds. Remove this rubber plug that comes installed on the caliper, as this is where the banjo bolt and the brake hose is going to go. And this is a personal preference, but what I like to do is remove the cap off the bleeder screw and open this up. Leave it open while I install the brake hose. This is just going to speed up my bleeding process. To do this, use a 10mm wrench. And we'll just leave it like this. Obviously no brake fluid is going to come out because the caliper needs to fill up, but that's why I like to speed up the process. With a collection bucket underneath, I'll be using an 11mm socket to remove the banjo bolt and disconnect the hose from the caliper. Now my caliper has already been replaced in the past. I can tell this isn't the factory one, so you might actually have a different size banjo bolt. I believe it should be a 12 or a 14. But in my case, I'll be using an 11mm like I said, and a collection bucket underneath because fluid will come out at this point. We'll let that caliper drain. Remove both of these copper washers here and get this brake hose unstuck. On this brake hose, make sure none of the old copper washers stayed on. Mine's good to go. I'm just going to give it a quick wipe down to make sure that it's free of debris. With your new caliper, you'll have some copper washers and of course a banjo bolt provided. Take one of these washers, slide it onto the banjo bolt. And then what you'll want to do is stick the banjo bolt with that washer through the hose, but from the correct side, so make sure that this pin faces towards the front of the vehicle. And then on the other side, install the other washer. And then slide all this onto the caliper, making sure that the threads line up on the banjo bolt. Torque this banjo bolt to 24 foot-pounds. What you're looking to do is squeeze these washers a little bit. They're copper, so they're soft, and that's what's going to create that nice tight seal you're looking for. Moving up to the bleeder screw, you can see our fluid is already dripping out, which is why I left it open in the first place. Now I want to give this about 10 to 20 seconds of a steady, clean drip. That way I make sure that I get as much of the air out as possible. You can see as I twist it, some air bubbles are still coming out. Now after this procedure, you may need to do a full manual brake bleed, so you'll see how to do that at the end of the video. But this gravity bleed is what this is called. Should take care of most of the air that's in there. With that said, I will tighten this up, just snug it a little bit, clean off any brake fluid that may be left on here. And until we get to our manual bleed, I'm going to cap this off. At this point, just to keep everything nice and clean, I'm going to spray some brake parts cleaner and rinse the back of this caliper since it does have brake fluid all over it. Reinstall your wheel. If your vehicle has those center caps, you'd want to put that on now, then the lug nuts. We'll install all 6 of these, bottom them out in a cross pattern, and then also in a cross pattern, we'll torque them to 98 foot-pounds. 98 foot-pounds in a cross pattern, here we go. Double check them all. And take it for a road test. To start, locate the brake master cylinder, which is under the hood on the driver's side, right by the firewall. Before opening the cap, if yours has a lot of debris on it, take a rag or a paper towel and just wipe it off. That way no debris makes its way into the master cylinder when you do open it. Then take your cap, turn it counterclockwise, carefully pull it off. Looking close on it, you can see that it says to use .3 brake fluid. That's exactly what we're going to use. With that set aside, I like to remove any old brake fluid that's in the master cylinder, unless I know I just put it in, which in this case I did not. So I'm going to stick my gloved hand in here and remove this little screen that makes sure that no debris can get in there. I'm going to set that aside on a clean surface. And then I'm going to use a vacuum pump or a fluid extraction pump and remove as much of the old brake fluid from the reservoir as I can. You're never going to get 100% of it, but the more, the better. All right, that's as much as I'm going to get out of it. We'll put back the little screen that goes in there, make sure it's fully seated, And now we'll fill this up all the way to the max line with .3 brake fluid. We'll put back the little screen that goes in there, make sure it's fully seated. And now we'll fill this up all the way to the max line with .3 brake fluid. Cap this back off. For this vehicle, the brake bleed sequence is as follows. You start at the right rear wheel and you bleed that caliper. Then you move over to the left front. Now that you've bled 2, you're supposed to top off the master cylinder. Then you bleed the left rear. Then you move over to the right front and bleed that one, after which you should top off the master cylinder again. If you think there's more air, repeat the same sequence again until there is no more air, topping off the master cylinder every other wheel. We are at our left rear caliper. Once again, this is where you're going to start. I'm going to pop off the bleeder screw cap. I have an assistant in the vehicle that's ready to pump up the brake pedal for me. I'm going to connect this hose to my bleeder screw. This is where I will collect my brake fluid for you. Make sure you have a catch pan underneath if you don't have a hose to attach to this. And with a 10mm wrench is what I'm going to use to open up the bleeder screw with. You can go ahead and pump now.
Holding.
All right, they're holding pressure, so I'm going to open this up.
Floor.
Okay, go ahead and pump again. We're going to do this until no more air bubbles or clean fluid come out of this bleeder screw.
Holding. Floor.
Go again.
Holding. Floor.
All right, let's do it again.
Holding. Floor.
All right. I have clean fluid and no air bubbles on this one. You can let go of the brake pedal. If any brake fluid spilt, clean it up, and of course, cap it back off. Now we'll move to the left front caliper. This is our left front caliper. We're going to do the same thing, remove the bleeder screw cap, 10mm wrench, and my hose. I'm going to attach that. Go ahead and pump.
Holding.
Okay, holding pressure. Just going to open this up.
Floor.
All right, we got some air out of that one. Go ahead and pump again.
Holding. Floor.
Go ahead and pump again.
Holding. Floor.
Perfect. One more time.
Holding. Floor.
All right, that's nice and clean. You can let go of the brake pedal. I'm going to remove my hose, clean things up a little bit here, use brake parts cleaner if needed, and we'll cap it off. It's time to fill up the master cylinder, so take the cap off, fill it up to the max line, and cap it back off. Then move over to the left rear caliper, do the same thing over there, and then the right front on the last one. Now let's fill up the master cylinder one last time. We'll take the cap off and fill it up to the max line, and then reinstall the cap, and job is done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.